My name is Lita Clark, and I was 29 years old when I learned that being calm, trusting, and secure can make you an easy target. At the time, my life looked solid from every angle. Not flashy, not social media perfect, but real, earned, stable in ways that actually mattered. I worked as a commercial airline pilot for a regional carrier based out of Charlotte, and I'd been flying professionally for 6 years. I didn't just fall into the job. I built toward it piece by piece. Flight instructor, first officer, then captain. Long days, early mornings, layovers in cities I barely had time to explore. But the work was steady, paid well, and came with a kind of quiet pride. People think flying is glamorous. It's not. I wasn't pulling Top Gun maneuvers or impressing anyone with daredevil stunts. Most days, I felt more like a bus driver in the sky, running the same routes, following checklists, managing weather delays, listening to passenger complaints about turbulence like it was a personal choice I'd made. Still, there was something meditative about it. Procedures, structure, control. When you're 35,000 feet in the air, you learn quickly that panic solves nothing. I owned a 3-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood outside the city. I bought it in 2020 when the market dipped. Foreclosure, rough around the edges, but structurally sound. It needed work, a lot of it. But I had time between flights and more patience than money. I ripped out the carpet myself, learned how to refinish hardwood floors from YouTube, painted every wall, installed new light fixtures, even figured out how to properly caulk a bathtub after ruining the first attempt and scraping it all off in frustration. By the time I was done, the house looked nothing like the place I'd bought. It felt like mine. Every improvement carried the memory of effort. The backyard was my favorite part. I fenced it in so my dog could run freely. His name was Atlas, a 110-pound Bernese mountain dog who believed personal space was a suggestion, not a rule. I rescued him from a family that underestimated what giant breed puppy really meant. He was 8 months old, already massive, and still convinced he was small enough to curl up on your chest. Obedience classes every Saturday for 3 months. Consistent training. Patience. Now he was the calmest dog on the block. Neighbors borrowed him for their kids. He sat on command, never jumped, walked perfectly on a leash. Atlas had a way of grounding me. No matter how chaotic my week was, he was always exactly the same. Happy to see me, content to exist. That was my life before everything went sideways. And then there was Ethan. I met Ethan at a wedding in the fall of 2021. Mutual friends. Big event. I was paired with him as a groomsman escort for the processional. We exchanged polite smiles, cracked a few jokes, and somehow ended up talking for hours like it was the most natural thing in the world. Ethan worked in pharmaceutical sales. Confident, smooth. The kind of guy who could talk to anyone and make them feel interesting. He had this easy charm, a quick laugh, and a way of leaning in slightly when you spoke, like you had his full attention. We moved fast, faster than I ever had before. Dating in October, living together by March, engaged by August of the following year. He proposed at a lakeside restaurant I loved, timing it so perfectly that the sun dipped below the water just as dessert arrived. He'd planned everything, reservations weeks in advance, coordinating with the staff, even sparkling grape juice instead of champagne because he knew I had an early flight the next morning. The ring was beautiful, white gold, princess-cut diamond, 3/4 of a carat, thoughtful without being excessive. I cried. FaceTimed my parents, his siblings. Everyone was thrilled. Wedding planning started immediately, June 2024. Venue booked. Pinterest boards overflowing with flowers, table settings, color palettes. His mom got very involved, maybe more than necessary, but at the time, it felt like excitement, not control. Everything felt like it was moving exactly the way it was supposed to, until February 2023. That's when Ethan mentioned, casually, that his ex-girlfriend, Lauren, had reached out to him on Instagram. She saw our engagement photos, he said one night while we were making dinner. Just wanted to congratulate us. I didn't react. People stay friendly with their exes all the time. I wasn't insecure. I wasn't someone who monitored phones or social media activity. I trusted him. Lauren was someone he'd dated for about 2 years in his early 20s. They broke up when she moved away to chase a creative career that never really materialized. According to Ethan, it had ended amicably. No drama, no lingering feelings. At first, it was just likes, then comments, then texts. Then it became, Lauren wants to grab coffee. Then, Lauren and I are meeting for lunch since she's back in town. I didn't love how often her name came up, but I told myself not to overthink it. I flew 3- and 4-day trips regularly. Ethan had his own long work days. We were adults with separate lives. Still, the pattern shifted. Lauren said this. Lauren thinks that. Lauren recommended that restaurant. Every conversation somehow circled back to her. When I finally brought it up, casually, carefully, Ethan laughed. "Oh my God," he said. "You're not jealous, are you? That's so not like you." The way he said it made me feel ridiculous for even mentioning it. So I dropped it. By April, Ethan framed what he thought was a compliment. He talked about how calm I was, how emotionally mature, how much he appreciated that I wasn't the jealous type. Then he said, "I just want to make sure we're really compatible before the wedding." That's when he introduced the idea. A test. Not his word at first, more like an exercise. A way to confirm trust. A casual hangout in a public place. Me, him, and Lauren. So I could see there was nothing weird going on. I remember the unease settling in my chest immediately. But when I hesitated, he tilted his head and said, "If you're uncomfortable, that kind of proves you are bothered. And that's fine. I'd just rather know now." It was a trap dressed up as emotional intelligence. Agree and prove I was secure. Refuse and confirm I wasn't. So I agreed. I told myself it was harmless. Neutral territory. Just a conversation. Wings and TV screens and noise loud enough to keep things surface level. I had no idea I was about to walk into a situation designed not to test trust, but to measure how much humiliation I'd tolerate before finally standing up for myself. The sports bar Ethan chose was called Rookies, a massive place near the airport with 40 televisions mounted on every wall and noise loud enough to drown out second thoughts. It was the kind of place flight crews stopped between shifts. Sticky floors, baskets of wings, servers shouting orders over playoff commentary. Neutral ground, Ethan had said. Casual, safe. We were supposed to meet at 2 on Saturday. I arrived at exactly 2, because punctuality is a habit that sticks with you when your entire career runs on schedules. As I pushed through the doors, the smell of fried food and beer hit me, and I spotted them immediately. Ethan already seated in a booth with Lauren, angled toward her in that familiar, attentive way I'd seen him do with clients, co-workers, strangers. They were already mid-conversation. Lauren stood when she saw me, flashing a bright, practiced smile. She looked exactly like the type of woman people expect when they hear ex-girlfriend. Athletic, polished, effortless, in a way that felt deliberate. Her hair fell perfectly over one shoulder, her outfit casual but clearly curated. "Lita, right?" she said, leaning in for a half hug that felt more like a measurement than a greeting. "Ethan's told me so much about you." That alone made my stomach tighten. Ethan smiled like this was all going exactly as planned. "You made it," he said, as if there had ever been a doubt. We slid into the booth, me across from them, and a server appeared. Almost immediately. I ordered nachos and a lemonade. They already had food. Lauren picked at a salad. Ethan had wings. The game played overhead. The noise forced us to raise our voices just enough to make everything feel slightly performative. Lauren wasted no time. "So," she said, resting her elbows on the table. "Pilot, huh? That's impressive." "Commercial," I said evenly. "Regional carrier." She nodded slowly. "I almost dated a pilot once. The hours scared me off. Seems like a lot of time away from home." Before I could respond, Ethan laughed. "Yeah, but Lita loves it. She's super disciplined, very calm under pressure." It sounded complimentary. It also sounded like a setup. Lauren tilted her head. "Discipline is good. Stability is good." She paused. "I guess everyone has different priorities." I let it slide. For the next 45 minutes, it was death by 1,000 comments. Lauren talked about her career in a way that somehow made every other job sound smaller by comparison. She mentioned her apartment downtown, her gym membership, her recent trip to Vegas. Each story just polished enough to feel competitive. Whenever the conversation drifted toward me, it was never direct, always sideways. "Regional airlines are kind of like the minor leagues, right?" she said at one point, smiling sweetly. "I mean, still impressive, just different." Ethan watched me closely, his eyes flicking between my face and Lauren's, like he was waiting for something, a reaction, a crack. I kept my expression neutral. When the topic shifted to money, I felt the air change. I mean, Lauren said casually, I couldn't imagine planning a family without a really strong financial base. Kids are expensive. Daycare alone is insane. Ethan laughed. We're not even talking about kids yet. Eventually, though, Lauren said, glancing at me. Right? I took a sip of my lemonade. Eventually. She smiled. Well, good luck with that. Everything's so unpredictable these days. At some point, she brought up the ring. Oh my God, Ethan showed me, she said. It's pretty. Classic. Thank you, I said. She leaned back. I always thought bigger stones were overrated anyway, at first, but tastes change. Ethan laughed again. I noticed then Ethan didn't redirect, didn't shut anything down. He watched, smiled, let it happen. Like this was the point. Lauren grew bolder. You know, she said, eyes flicking between us, Ethan and I actually talked about getting married back in the day. My grip tightened on the glass. We even picked names, she continued lightly. Isn't that funny? Madison for a girl, Jackson for a boy. Ethan shifted, uncomfortable now, but still said nothing. That's ancient history, he finally muttered. History matters, Lauren said. It shapes who we become. She turned to me. Do you ever think about his past relationships? Wonder how you measure up? There it was. The real test. The bar noise faded into the background as I set my glass down carefully. I looked directly at her, then at Ethan. I think about it all the time, I said calmly. Mostly how grateful I am that people grow out of situations that no longer serve them. Lauren's smile faltered. And, I continued, my voice steady, how lucky I am that I didn't have to compete to be chosen. Silence. Ethan's eyes widened. Lauren laughed nervously. Wow, okay, I was just joking. Me too, I said. Thanks for lunch. I slid out of the booth. Ethan stood halfway. Lita. I'll be outside, I said, already walking away. The parking lot felt like oxygen after being underwater. I unlocked my car, let Atlas out for a minute. He bounded around happily, oblivious, tail wagging like the world was still simple. 15 minutes later, Ethan approached alone. He opened the passenger door and got in, already exhaling like he'd been holding his breath. What was that? He demanded. What was what? I asked, starting the engine. You embarrassed Lauren. I stared straight ahead. She spent an hour insulting me. She was joking, he said quickly. You're being oversensitive. Oversensitive. The word settled between us like a verdict. You set me up, I said quietly. I did not, he snapped. I wanted you to see there was nothing between us. The way she spoke to me, I said, pulling out of the parking lot, said otherwise, and you let it happen. He crossed his arms. You proved my point. I laughed once, short and humorless. And you proved mine. The rest of the drive passed in silence, his phone lighting up repeatedly in his hand. By the time we pulled into my driveway, something fundamental had already broken. I just didn't know yet how deep the damage went. The moment we stepped inside the house, the silence felt heavier than the argument we'd just left in the car. Atlas padded in behind us, nails clicking softly against the hardwood floors I'd refinished myself. He stopped in the hallway, sensing the tension, tail lowering as he looked between Ethan and me, like he was trying to decide which version of us he was supposed to respond to. Ethan dropped his keys onto the counter harder than necessary. I can't believe you acted like that, he said, turning to face me. You made things so awkward. I took off my jacket slowly, deliberately. You're upset because she felt awkward. She was embarrassed, he snapped. She didn't deserve that. I looked at him. Really looked at him. The man I was supposed to marry in 14 months. The man who'd told me, just hours earlier, how emotionally mature I was. She spent an hour belittling my career, my income, my future, I said. She talked about marrying you, about kids you planned together, and you sat there smiling. That's not fair, he said immediately. You're twisting it. I sat there and counted how many times you defended me, I said quietly. Do you know what number I landed on? He opened his mouth, then closed it. She was nervous, he said finally. I didn't want to make it worse. So you let it be worse for me. That's not what this was about, he said, running a hand through his hair. This was supposed to prove you trust me. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You don't test trust by humiliating someone. He crossed his arms. You walked out. You escalated it. I ended it. That was immature. Something in my chest snapped, not loudly, not dramatically, but cleanly. I'm not having this conversation right now, I said. I need space. He frowned. Space from what? From me? Yes. I went straight to the bedroom and pulled a duffel bag from the closet. Not mine, his. What are you doing? He asked, following me. I'm helping you pack, I said, opening drawers. You should stay at your apartment for a while. You're kicking me out? His voice cracked with disbelief. Over lunch? Over what that lunch revealed. I moved methodically. Toiletries from the bathroom, clothes from the closet, laptop from the desk. Each item felt like reclaiming oxygen. "This is insane," he said. "We're engaged." "And you set me up to be disrespected," I replied. "Those two facts can't coexist." He stared at me like I'd suddenly started speaking another language. "I wasn't testing you," he insisted. "I was just trying to confirm things." "Confirm what?" I asked, finally turning to face him. He hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. I needed to know," he said slowly, "that I was making the right choice." My stomach dropped. "About marrying me," I said. "About us," he corrected quickly. "About everything." I waited. He exhaled. Lauren reached out after seeing the engagement photos. She said she regretted how things ended, that she wondered if there was still something there. The room felt very still. "So I thought," he continued, words tumbling now, "if we all spent time together, either I'd realize I still had feelings for her, or I'd realize I was completely over it." I felt cold. "You used me," I said, as a comparison. "I didn't mean it like that," he said immediately. "I realized during that lunch that you're better for me. You're stable. You treat me like a partner. She's still the same person she was years ago." He said it like it was supposed to comfort me. "You let her insult me," I said slowly, "so you could figure out your emotions. I didn't think it would go that far." You laughed. I was uncomfortable. "So was I said. "The difference is, no one protected me." Atlas let out a low bark, as if punctuating the moment. Ethan rubbed his face. "I messed up, I know that. But that doesn't mean we throw everything away." "It means we pause," I said, "and you leave." He stared at the bag in my hands. "So that's it?" he asked. "You're punishing me?" "No," I said calmly. "I'm choosing myself." He took the bag without another word. At the door, he turned back. "Call me when you're ready to apologize." I met his gaze. "Call me when you understand why I don't owe you one." He left. I locked the door, slid down against it, and Atlas immediately pressed his massive head into my lap. I rested my forehead against his, breathing in and out until the shaking stopped. By Monday morning, my phone was a war zone. Missed calls, texts, voicemails. Ethan, his mother, his sister. Messages ranging from apologetic to accusatory to confused. I ignored them all and went to work. Flying helped. Checklists didn't care about feelings. Procedures didn't gaslight you. Up there, everything was clear. Inputs, outputs, consequences. On Tuesday, I got a message from Lauren. "I think things got misunderstood Saturday. Can we talk?" I didn't respond. Wednesday night, Ethan showed up at my door. Atlas stood beside me as I opened it. "We need to talk," Ethan said, eyes red. "You can talk," I replied. "From there." He swallowed. "I'm sorry." It was the first time he'd said it without conditions. "I set you up," he admitted. "And when you stood up for yourself, I blamed you. That was wrong." It was progress. But some things don't reverse. "I don't trust you anymore," I said quietly. "And love doesn't survive without trust." He started crying. I closed the door gently. The next 2 weeks were brutal. Messages, pressure, explanations. His family insisting everyone has doubts before marriage. But one thought kept circling back, clear as altitude call-outs in a cockpit. Love doesn't test you. Love doesn't observe your pain. Love doesn't ask how much you'll endure before breaking. By the end of week 2, I had my answer. I asked Ethan to meet me at a coffee shop near his apartment. Neutral territory, public, busy enough that emotions would have to stay contained. It was a place called Daily Grind, one of those spots with mismatched chairs, soft indie music playing just loud enough to blur other people's conversations. I arrived early, ordered a black coffee, and chose a table tucked into the corner where I could see the door without being on display. When Ethan walked in, I barely recognized him. His shoulders were slumped. His hair looked unwashed. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. He scanned the room until he found me, then froze for a moment like he was bracing himself before approaching. He sat down slowly. "Hey," he said. "Hi." He didn't order anything, just folded his hands on the table and stared at them like they might give him answers. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then his composure cracked. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice shaking. "I know I already said it, but I really am. I made the biggest mistake of my life." I watched him carefully, not with anger, with distance. "I've thought about everything," I said calmly, over and over. He nodded quickly. "Me too. I'll do anything to fix this. I've cut off Lauren completely. Blocked her everywhere. I swear. I'll go to counseling. We can go together. I'll prove I've changed." I took a slow breath. "This wasn't one mistake," I said. "It was a pattern." He shook his head. "It was fear. I panicked." "You reconnected with your ex. You kept her in our conversations. You arranged that lunch. You sat there while she disrespected me. And when I finally defended myself, you blamed me. Each sentence landed heavier than the last. I didn't see it that way at the time, he whispered. That's part of the problem. His eyes filled with tears. I love you, Lita. I believed him. And that made it harder. I don't doubt that, I said, but love doesn't erase what happened. He leaned forward. Please don't throw away 2 years over one bad decision. I'm not throwing anything away, I replied. I'm responding to the truth. Silence stretched between us. Finally, he asked the question he'd been avoiding. So, what does this mean? I looked him directly in the eyes. I don't think we should get married, I said. And I don't think we should stay together. The words settled heavily in the air. He broke down, not loudly, not dramatically. Quiet tears slipping down his face as he pressed his lips together to keep himself from sobbing. Please, he said. Everyone deserves a second chance. This wasn't about forgiveness, I said gently. It's about trust, and mine is broken. What about the wedding? He asked. The venue, the plans? We're far enough out to recover most of the deposit, I said. We'll split whatever costs are left. And the ring? I paused. I thought about that, I said. Technically, I could ask for it back, but I won't. He looked up, stunned. Keep it, I continued. Sell it, trade it. Do whatever you want. I'm not fighting over jewelry. That seemed to hit him harder than anything else. I can't believe this is happening, he whispered. I can, I said quietly, because it already did. I stood up. He reached out instinctively, then stopped himself. Is there any chance, he asked, voice barely audible, that you'll change your mind? I felt only sadness. No, I said, I'm sorry. I walked out without looking back. The aftermath was exactly as messy as you'd expect. Calls from his family. Messages insisting I was being harsh. His mother left me a voicemail saying I was cruel for abandoning her son over a misunderstanding. I blocked numbers, focused on work, flew routes, walked Atlas at night under quiet streetlights. 2 months later, I heard through mutual friends that Ethan and Lauren had tried again. 6 weeks. That's how long it lasted. She cheated on him with someone from her work. The irony didn't feel satisfying, just clarifying. Last I heard, Ethan tells people we grew apart. That's one way to describe discovering that someone you planned to marry was willing to sacrifice your dignity to resolve their unfinished business. What I learned is simple, and I won't forget it. Love doesn't test you. Love doesn't watch you suffer. Love doesn't ask how much you'll endure to prove you're worthy. I chose myself, and I'd do it again. The weeks after the breakup were strangely calm. Not easy, but quiet. The messages eventually stopped. Ethan's family moved on to something else to be upset about. Mutual friends stopped trying to update me on his life. I blocked the last unfamiliar number and felt a kind of silence settle in that didn't feel lonely, just clear. I heard, much later, that Ethan and Lauren had tried again. It lasted a little over a month. She cheated on him with someone from work. He found out the way people always seem to in stories like this, by accident, too late, with the truth sitting right there on a phone screen. When a mutual friend told me, waiting for my reaction, all I felt was confirmation. Not satisfaction, not relief, just confirmation. Atlas and I kept our routines, morning walks, evening walks, quiet nights at home. I flew, I slept, I stopped replaying the bar scene in my head, stopped wondering if I'd been too harsh, stopped questioning whether being understanding should have cost me my self-respect. Here's what I know now. If someone loves you, they don't test you. They don't observe your pain like data. They don't let someone else disrespect you just to see what happens. Love isn't a loyalty experiment. It's a choice.